Hi, it's Mark Bossert from Top Local Lead Generation. We're here talking about franchises with Chuck Prenevost. He's a franchise specialist. How are you doing today, Chuck?
I'm doing great, Mark. How are you doing?
I'm good. So I guess we're talking about how much money do I need for a franchise in Western Canada?
Right.
And I guess the first burning question, I'm sure this is number one on the hit list, is how much money, Chuck, how much money do I need to invest?
You're so right, Mark. This is one of those areas that, is probably one of the top two, top three questions most people ask when they're considering, buying a franchise. And, really what I like to say is this is the way I answer that question is I usually ask them a question and really try to get inside their financial brain or their comfort zone. And I actually ask that question: what is your comfort range? And when I ask that question, I usually say that means you and your spouse or your business partner. A lot of the clients that we do work with are husband and wife. One has been packaged out of the corporate world and is now looking to start a new business. So it's a family decision, oftentimes a major family decision. So it's very important to get your spouse's support early on, and understanding that the money side is a huge part of their decision to come in. And the reason I ask that question is I want to understand what's the affordability for the people asking the question. If if they're uncertain about their answer, or they just kind of give me vague answers, then I usually give them a little homework. And what I usually suggest to them is go home and crunch your numbers and come up with a net worth statement. In other words, here's my assets, here's my liabilities, here's how much is left over, and potentially I could use some of that net worth to finance the new business. And part of that net worth or the number crunching homework that I give them, I also say, what's your monthly expenses to run your household, right? And that includes, mortgages, gas, car, groceries, kids stuff, all of that. And I generally lump that into what's your monthly burn rate. So yeah, you have both sides of the equation. Then you have, here's my net worth and my ability to invest into a new business, and here's my downside, or here's my costs I have to cover no matter what. Start a new business, go back to corporate, take 6 months off, whatever the case may be. So those net worth statements will prove to be very, very useful in the short term, just for getting clarity on your own numbers, but also as you begin the research, because guess what? That's one of the first areas franchisors are going to talk to you about, right? Do you have enough money to fund this investment? And a typical range of our investments is anywhere from about 50,000 to well over 850,000. So it's quite a wide range. And excuse me. And the franchisors, ultimately, they want to know, can you afford to invest into this franchise and be successful at it? All right. So they're going to qualify you on that. So knowing your net worth statements and or your net worth numbers and your burn rates also will leave a pretty favorable impression on the franchisor, because they're going to be thinking, hey, this person knows their numbers pretty good. All right. The other part of it is, we have 70 franchise companies that we currently represent now in Canada. And a lot of times the franchisors will actually dictate to us, here is my minimum net worth requirement. If you're going to introduce me to any potential candidates, they must have a net worth of X. All right. So those are that's the experience of the franchisor coming into play there. So they're looking at their entire system, their entire number of franchisees, and they're going, who are our most successful franchisees out there? What did they start with? How much money did they have? And where are they on the scale of, top performers, middle to lower performers? So they're drawing on their own experience. So that's where that comes from. And I've had situations where I thought somebody was a good fit for a particular franchise, but their net worth didn't meet with the requirement, and the franchisor said, thank you, but unfortunately we're not going to say yes to the introduction. So they're very, very particular about that. So it's important for anybody that is looking at investing into a franchise to understand what their true net worth statement is, their true value. And assuming that they're comfortable with those numbers, the other part of it is, how much can I invest out of my personal numbers, but am I comfortable going to a bank and potentially asking for financing? So obviously that's part of the how much money do I need question. And what we find from our banking partners is they usually say, we're willing to go 50-50. So you put in 50% of the money, we're willing to put in 50% of the money there. So part of that financing question also comes down to risk. And risk is a huge part of what I do, managing the risk of the opportunity as the people research it. So understanding your risk level there and your comfort level of taking on additional debt is also a critical piece right there. The one caveat I'll put out there about banks is they're great funding partners, and when they say they'll finance 50% of the investment, what typically happens is they will finance the hard assets only. Okay, so not the intangible assets. So an example of intangible assets would be the franchise fee. Or let's say when you first start your business, there's a training fee. So that's what banks will look at and say, no, we're not interested in financing that. Banks being asset-based lenders, of course, they're going to look at the assets. So the equipment or leasehold improvements or vehicles, those are the hard assets that they would consider financing. So that's the one caveat around that 50-50 rule. So there are some great programs out there in the banking world, and and if you're comfortable in that area, that is a great way to leverage somebody else's money. Yeah.
So I guess the other question would be then, all right, I'm putting up all this money, how long to break even?
Okay, well, that's kind of money question number 2 is the way I would describe that. And again, I kind of equate this back to risk. What I'm trying to do is really hear where the person's risk level is, or their comfort factor. And what's my likely exposure and for how long? That's really what they're asking when I hear how long to break even. All right, so that's a huge part of that financial decision. So what is the risk picture? So I'll ask a lot of additional questions around that. However, staying with the risk theme for a bit here, the good franchisors will be able to give you some strong insights to how long it will take you to break even. All right, again, they will look at their entire system, all of their franchisees, and they will usually say the investment is X amount, and what we recommend is working capital of X. So you'll get a total investment picture. In fact, that's one of the areas we are very, very strong with our franchisors, is we want to make sure anybody that's looking at investing in their business is that they don't come up with any surprises, any last-minute surprises. So working capital is always part of the numbers that we present to any of our clients, because without that working capital, most franchisees will run out of money if they don't have that set aside, and that's usually set aside for marketing, driving top-line revenue, especially in the early months as you ramp your business up. Yeah.
So I guess in kind of part and parcel with that is, of how much do I need to invest? How long is it going to take to break even? What does it cost for you?
What does it cost for me? In what sense, Mark?
Well, you're working. How do you get paid?
Oh, I see. Yeah, great question, Mark. Well, we at FranNet, we have a great business model. And the way our business model works is I get paid a referral fee at the back end only if somebody buys a business that I introduced them to and coached them through that 60 to 90-day research process that we follow. And ultimately, we'll eliminate 2 or 3 of those businesses along the way and ideally get to the one that is the best fit, the best match. They can meet their personal and financial goals with. And then the person would purchase that, and then at that point, I would get paid a referral fee. So services are free to clients along the way. It's a great business model. Yeah.
So then what's the return on investment going to be like?
Well, kind of the return on investment and the how much money can I make, to me, those kind of fall into the same category, if I could say it that way. And that's always a tough one to answer, because it's really going to end up being the person who drives the franchise that they purchase. Only they can really answer that. So the way I like to describe this is not ROI, rather ROE, return on your efforts. Okay, and what we're really talking about here is an outcome of your efforts, and it's only something that that person can control. I can't control it. The franchisor can't control it. It really comes down to, I like to say, you're going to be the captain of your own ship, and you're the only one. The buck will stop with you. You have to drive the boat, and if you're not comfortable in that area, then perhaps business ownership isn't exactly the right one for you. But assuming that it is, I usually say, here are the questions you need to ask yourself in order to answer that question. And it really comes down to, what's my level of commitment to doing this? Doing this being follow the research process to ideally find a business that's best suited for my skills. What's my focus on making this my next full-time career? Because the research process, what we like to say is you should be committing about 15 hours a week of research in order to get the right information so you can make a fact-based decision about the opportunity. All right. The other areas, what I would suggest is, what do you want to achieve by owning the business? So really mapping out what your goals are, personal goals, financial goals, and the list goes on and on and on. But really, what you're trying to define are your goals, and you want to begin to map that out in order to get clarity, stronger clarity of, this is my new direction. Do I believe in myself? Can I go here? How committed am I to be in business by 1 month, 3 months, 6 months? What's my timeline that way? And then I want to bring the skills back in for a moment here as well, Mark, and that is, what are you good at? Right? I like to say, if you reflect back on your past careers, where were those areas that you really got excited about? And conversely, what are the areas that, frankly, you got frustrated with? And what we want to do is really map out those areas of strength, and then how likely are you to bring those in as the core activity of the new business? Like how likely are you to be involved in, and it could be a number of things, business generation, networking, hiring, marketing, staffing, all of those aspects. Where are your strengths, and here are the core elements of that business. Is it a good fit for you? Right. So on a scale of 1 to 10, how well suited are you to performing those activities? And I know that's a bit of a long-winded answer to the question, but yeah, I kind of say, let's reverse engineer it for a bit. Let's figure out all those aspects that you could bring to the table, including the money and your skills, and then do the research and introduce you to businesses that are the best match for those skill sets and your investment. And only then can you start building a business plan and mapping out what my ROI really will be.
So what I take away from that is, it's really a rigorous, honest self-appraisal, and looking at the fit then of, okay, well, my fantasy was this, but I'm really not going to be Captain Stubing. Maybe I need to be, whatever that fit actually is. The retired accountant is not going to become the world's best salesman overnight, kind of.
That's right.
So,
Yeah, and it's a good takeaway what you just described, Mark, because not not everybody is strong in sales. Not everybody's strong in operations or staffing. And sure, every element of any business has components of that, but the unique thing about franchising is the franchisor brings a lot of support systems to the table. And what they're looking for is somebody to really drive the business in one of those particular categories. And they generally take care of, the majority of the rest of the other aspects of the business. So your focus is exactly that, drive the business. You don't have to necessarily deal with all the admin or the cold calling or any of the stuff that perhaps you just loathe doing. So that's part of what we really try to achieve at FranNet is to match your skills with that strong business model. And if we can do that properly, most of our clients end up being very, very successful.
That's great. So I think we've wrapped that up pretty good. Anything further that you'd like to close with?
Um, no, I think I'll just perhaps summarize a little bit. And anybody that is interested in looking at business ownership, in particular franchising, is to really do that self-evaluation on the financial side, but also on that emotional side. And really, it's the gut check in a sense, and really understand what your long-term goals are, where you would like to take a new business, to what level on personal and financial goals.
Awesome. We've been talking with Chuck Prenevost. He's a franchise specialist with FranNet. You can reach him at 1-604-849-0278. That's 1-604-849-0278. Thanks a lot, Chuck.
Thank you very much, Mark.
Bye.